EBT SNAP is more than just free food. It's a combination of food, but then SNAP is a part of America's supply chain. And a lot of people really don't look at it that way because propaganda has taught us that it's all about the welfare queen. So when the federal government pauses or cuts SNAP benefits, or what we know or used to know as food stamps, it isn't just about families missing a meal. It's about shaking the foundation of an entire economic ecosystem. Now, we've been taught to imagine SNAP as a handout. Truth is, SNAP is one of the most powerful and large local economic engines in the United States. But they won't tell you that. See, SNAP feeds more than families. It actually feeds a complete supply chain. So, number one, households spend their benefits at authorized stores. So you can't just spend them anywhere. The store has to go through a process to receive them and to get on the list and say, hey, we accept EBT or food stamps, keeping grocery carts full and children fed. Local retailers, especially small corner stores in those areas that don't have a big box retailer or large grocery store chain, and community grocers rely on those dollars to survive. Distributors and truckers keep shelves stocked, moving products across countries and counties and states. Not so much countries, but once they get off of those ships, they're brought to counties, and then they're brought to those states, to the cities, to those small, tiny little towns, and everywhere in between. So everybody wins there. And then farmers and food producers are also a part of that supply chain. So that's something else to consider as well, meaning SNAP dollars ripple all the way back to the farm. But when benefits stop, that ripple turns into a wave. So the first thing is families start to tighten their budgets overnight, and they don't spend as much because now the money that they may have had, even if it was $5 or $10 extra dollars, has to go towards those groceries. So that's number one. Number two, grocers who literally are dependent themselves, especially those mom and pop stores and those corner stores, they lose dependable revenue streams because there is no SNAP benefits. So think about that. The local store that you've been going to, because there's no grocer in your area that accepts your SNAP benefits, will not be able to pay their bills, keep their lights on, or do the things that they need to do to keep the store running, or even to fulfill or backfill food items, because there won't be any resources to get those food items. And then distributors, they'll cut orders and lay off workers. That's number one. And number two, and number three, farmers are going to lose demand for their products. Now, this is a charity. It's literally a circulation. It's $1 billion in SNAP, generating an estimated $1.5 billion in GDP, and supports over 13,000 jobs. Y'all, that's real money and real people fueling the local economies in the US of A. So here's the part politicians rarely talk about, but I talk about quite a bit. And here's the thing. The majority of SNAP recipients who can work do work. Many are employed at major corporations like Walmart and McDonald's, companies whose low wages literally are unstable, and the unstable hours push workers onto public assistance. There was a time when McDonald's literally had a training video that taught you how to balance your income coming from working for them and how to go and apply for those local benefits and services. Oh, yeah. So we call it welfare, but it's really a public subsidy for corporate payrolls. But nobody's having that conversation at all. And while working families are stretching every single dollar, these corporations receive tax breaks and subsidies, which ultimately is welfare. But we still don't want to have that conversation. And still, they continue to pay wages that can't cover basics. And that's why so many full-time workers still qualify for assistance programs like WIC, SNAP, Medicaid, because they cannot afford those daily basic needs. Not to mention, I didn't even talk about childcare. So, since we're having this conversation, let's talk about what we could do to fix it. So, if the real problem is poverty wages, cutting SNAP is not the way to solve it. It'll make it worse. Real solutions look like raising minimum wages to match the true cost of living in each region where people are working and living. Fair scheduling so workers can maintain stable hours and benefits, and strengthening earned income tax credits and child care support to keep families afloat so they're not constantly trying to figure out how A and B are going to equal C and they're just waving at each other. And here's another thing that we don't do anything about, and that's holding corporations accountable for paying living wages and not relying on taxpayers to fill the gap, because you basically are. Because once you get in there and you clock in and you're working your hours full time, and then you go to your second job and you're working 80 hours a week, just one person, mind you, you turn right around and those tax dollars that you're giving back to the government in turn is given to that corporation that you work for as a subsidy. So basically, you're paying them to not pay you enough money so that you have to turn around and request support, and then you're blamed for it. Make it make sense. So let's talk about the myth of the welfare queen, shall we? So now this welfare queen stereotype didn't fall out of the sky, folks. It was created and weaponized in the 70s, most famously by Ronald Reagan, based on a single sensationalized case. And here's the thing, it was huge. The image was deliberately racialized to stigmatize Black women and justify cuts to social safety nets. But here's the truth. The majority of SNAP recipients are children, seniors, and people with disabilities. The largest racial group receiving SNAP is white, followed by Black and Latino households. Fraud rates in SNAP are extremely low, but the narrative persists because it's politically convenient. And it's just enough to keep folks yapping at each other instead of looking at who's the real culprit here. So let's talk about the real history of food stamps and what you may or may not know. But in case you don't, or even if you do, let this be a refresher or something new for you to chew on. SNAP, or food stamps, was actually born from a New Deal program to move surplus farm goods. Listen closely, folks. I talk about this on my live. To move surplus farm goods and fight hunger during the Great Depression. But access wasn't equal. I bet you a lot of folks didn't know that. In the 1960s, counties could choose whether to participate, and many Southern counties refused to enroll Black communities or used food programs to control and punish them. Indigenous communities were often given inferior commodity food instead of equitable SNAP access. And by the 1970s, after years of organizing and civil rights pressure, the program finally expanded nationwide, opening it up for everyone. But at one time, it was only for white families. This wasn't a freebie. It was a hard-won right to basic human dignity. So here's the thing. SNAP doesn't just keep food on tables. It keeps, one, neighborhood stores open. It keeps truckers and warehouse workers employed, farmers and producers in business, and local economies from stalling. So when we talk about SNAP, we're not just talking about them. We're talking about us. Hunger doesn't live in isolation. It lives down the block, at the corner store, and in your local economy. SNAP is not just an assistance program, folks. It's infrastructure. It stabilizes communities. It boosts local economies and keeps millions from going hungry. And if we want to reduce reliance on it, we have to build livable wages, not break lifelines. And when we say building livable wages, that means holding major corporations and employers accountable to treat their employees fairly all the way around, and not just with a pizza party. For more news and information that you can use, head on over to brownstoneworldwide.com, Cityscape Radio, and you guessed it, Brownstone Living magazine. We'll see you around.